Marvelous Designer started. All right, looks like it worked. So I've made some modifications to the body. Oh, come on. I made some modifications to the body. I got some Arnold reference out. So let's go ahead and pull him up here. There's our dude. So you're going to see my shirt doesn't fit anymore. The good news is we have the shirt file saved in Marvelous Designer, so it'll just be a matter of just resimming it a little bit, and we'll be good to go. So let's go ahead and start out with just kind of doing that here. So I'm going to isolate his body real quick. Let's go into solo mode, and I'm going to decimate this. See, plug in here, pre-process current, and let me pause this. Cool. Let me pop this out. All right, and we should have a marvelous window, which isn't working. Let me go ahead and delete that. So we're in ZBrush now, so let's go ahead and take this one. I'm trying to get a Marvelous one up and running. So we pre-process this. I'll knock this guy down to about 88K, hit decimate current. And you can see I should have duped him off because it pretty much destroys that geometry. So I'm going to go ahead and export this real quick as, we'll call this avatar updated. And then I'm going to hit undo just to bring back our guy here. And like I said, I got some Arnold reference out, and I kind of made some modifications to him. And somebody mentioned, and I can't remember if it was a Pixel stream or my stream, using matcap gray a lot. I do tend to use matcap gray because it gives me a little bit more information in the shadow areas, but I would also say, what you should probably do, is change it from the matte caps to one of these basic materials. So basically matte caps don't contain a whole lot of lighting information. So if I go to my matte cap here, and we'll do matte cap gray, and I go over here to my light menu, and I move this light around, you're going to see it doesn't really update because the lighting information is baked into that sphere right there. It does cast a shadow with one light on a matte cap. So if I hit BPR render, you're going to see if I have the light over on the left side, it'll cast a shadow on the right, and if I put the light on the right side, it'll cast a shadow over here to the left. So it does have some lighting information in there, but if you want to see lighting update on the fly, I would go to a basic material, Baby Snake, and use a basic. You don't have to use a basic, but any of these standard materials, you'll be able to see the lighting update on the fly. So you can go in there, and if you have reference of like, because a lot of bodybuilding reference I have, especially Arnold on stage, it's very high lighting, so you can kind of change your lighting in ZBrush. And if you are losing a lot of information, or you're kind of losing him in the darkness, you can go back here to your document, and you can change your background color to something lighter, or you can also turn on another light. So if we turn on another light, this is kind of a fill light here. So with this light selected, you can turn it on and then tap it again to select it. And you can drop the intensity down or raise it up or just kind of do a little bit of fill. You can even, we'll tap another one here and we'll go ahead. Let's turn that one off. I think it's this one. Yeah, this one's got a little bit of blue in it. So you can change the intensity of this and, give it like a little bit of a cool light. And all of these lights, if you want to, you can go to light properties, and this one doesn't have a shadow, doesn't cast a shadow. This one does cast a shadow, so when I BPR render this, the two of the lights won't cast a shadow, one of them will. You can change your shadow intensity, I believe. It's been a while since I messed around with this. Let's see. Shadow intensity down. That's still pretty intense. So if we go up here to our render properties, maybe. Shadows, BPR shadows, global strength. Let's crank that down. Okay, there we go. So you can kind of change down the strength of the shadows. You can also blur them out a little bit more. And let's go ahead and move the camera so it doesn't lock in that information. Let's blur them out a lot. What's up with that? Should blur out a little more than that. There we go. So you see the shadows start to blur. You can also, if you want to, turn on ambient occlusion, go to your ambient occlusion settings. I'm going to crank down the blur on this one, and you can go ahead and light this guy. Now, of course, BPR, shadows, and ambient occlusion isn't real time, but the lighting is for the basic material here. So feel free to use that. I'll turn most of these off probably, and then that way you can kind of evaluate your model under different lights. Let's select this light. There we go. And if you ever want to send a light around to the back, you can just click that light once, and that sends it around to the back. And when we get into like rendering in ZBrush, we'll use these to kind of do a render pass. We can just kind of basically take that light and change the material properties, and then throw that as another render pass. So we got that going. We got the light around to the front. We got our white. Whoa. And the intensity I'll drop back down to 1 or 0.85. There we go. So now this is the basic material guy. Speaking of, let's go ahead and I'm going to add another window capture. And we'll call this Marv. And we will call it, there we go. Now it works. So like I said, we just decimated this guy and exported him. So I'm going to Marvelous Designer, File, Import, OBJ. We're going to import our avatar updated as an avatar, and I have it set to centimeters as my scale. By default, it's millimeters. So if you want to, you can export out the avatar from Marvelous into ZBrush and match that. I did it 1/10, so it's centimeters. Hit OK. And there's our avatar, and she shouldn't be in the middle of the floor. That's weird. I'm going to move him up. Wonder if I need to go change something. Not a big deal. I can also double click him, and I can drop his color down a little bit. You can even give him a little bit of a skin tone if you want to. And okay, so our shirt. So let's go ahead and do File, Open, Project. I think I saved a project. Oh, okay. So when you load up an avatar, let's see if I saved it as a garment. Let's go add. Okay, we can do add a project. And we have, let's go find it. It's probably in here somewhere. Must have been a garment. Go File, Add Garment. There it is, tank top. And okay. There we go. So our tank top's over here to the right. I'm just going to move these over. And we'll just basically resim this tank top on there on our new updated musculature and proportions here. Okay, now that we got that on there, I'm going to change his color. He's kind of creeping me out here. Okay, so we can go and hit space bar to sim. And it's got a I'm going to go ahead and pause that. I forgot we left it on pretty high, so I'm going to grab these and I'm going to drop this particle distance down to like 12, or up to 12 I should say, and then I'll hit resim. And that way it'll sim a little bit faster and we're good to go. So now he's got shirt on his new body here. Looks fine to me. And again, this can change and we can go in here and be as fancy as we want to later on. So I'm going to drop this temporarily back down to like, let's say 5. And we'll let that sim for another minute. Yeah, I'm gonna double check why that model brought it in the middle of his body. It shouldn't have done that. He should be sitting on the floor. But I should be able to also unify this guy to my scene. We'll see how well that works. But so we'll go to File and we'll go ahead and save this as we'll just save over that tank top file. I go to File, Export. I'm going to export the avatar with the shirt just so I have his avatar as a size reference and a scale reference to kind of move it perfectly into place later. So we'll call this shirt updated. And all patterns, all avatars, we can go ahead and do weld. We'll do thin because I'm going to give it thickness like we did last time. And now let's go ahead and I'll turn off sim. If we want to hop back in, we can. And I'm going to throw ZBrush. I'm going to drop Marvelous down, I should say. There we go. Hop into ZBrush. And we'll go out of edit mode. And we'll go to standard brush here, because if I go here and I import, it'll import an OBJ into this guy, which I don't want. So I'm just going to go grab this, shirt updated. And let's see what's up with this dude. So I'm going to go to subtool, append, shirt updated. And I'm in solo mode here. Yeah, that's weird. Let's see if we can't select this guy and go to deformation, unify, and that kind of snaps him somewhat, at least to the right height anyway. Though I wonder, is this even the right guy? Yeah. He's got toes and stuff. Let's go into solo mode here. Okay. So it's not perfect. I'll have to figure out. I might have moved my ZBrush model inadvertently or something. Whenever I get, you know what you can do? You can select him, and let's go check out his geometry, size, and position. These look fine. He's pretty zeroed out. I don't know. I'll do some tests. Usually when I have to go very specific, like locations in the world, I do it outside of ZBrush just as a second opinion, I guess you could say. I'll do Fusion 360 or Maya or something like that. But he's looking fine. So we'll just take his shirt here on the shirt updated. And instead of doing an auto groups, which can take a long time, we'll just grab part of his face, Control-Shift-A, which is visibility grow all. And I will invert that, and then I'll just do a quick delete hidden. Now these things... Oh, you know what? I forgot. I guess when I selected all the patterns, it updated. So it updated this one to 5, and it just kept this one at 12. Not a big deal. We'll make do. So if I do auto groups, I welded them. Okay, that's fine. So we've got this thing here. We can go ahead and delete the old shirt. Always okay. I'm going to hold down Shift, pop this to the top, and we'll drop it underneath. And let's go ahead and Z-remesh this thing to make it production friendly. So we've got our original here. I'm going to duplicate this off, and we're going to go into, how many polygons is this? 22,000? That's not too bad. Geometry, Z-remesher. No, let's do a target polygon count of like 5K is fine. Adaptive size down to 0, nice even quads, and we'll just hit Z-remesh since we did duplicate that off. And I don't have X turned on because it's not symmetrical, so I don't want to force it into symmetry here. That's actually not bad. Let me go in here. I'm just going to smooth these things out because I can go in here manually. And if I want to help Z-remesher out, I can tell it, well, first I can go into BZP, Z project brush, turn off RGB, and just keep Z add on. And I can manually go in here and just force it to kind of grab these wrinkles just by holding down Alt. And then if you let go of Alt, it'll push the mesh down in there.
Is there a way to move his feet to 0, 0, 0 in ZBrush?
You can manually do it, and that's what I'm concerned about, is because if I look at him, yeah, so you can manually put his feet at 0, 0, 0. It's hard to tell because ZBrush always puts the floor at the lowest part of your bounding box of the object. But I could have sworn I put his feet at 0, 0, 0. Let me see. But yeah, when I was in geometry under position, I wonder. It's difficult. So I could bring in a cube from Maya and just put it on the floor and then bring it into ZBrush, and I can use that as kind of like, hey, where's my actual floor at? But ZBrush can kind of be, it's kind of weird because ZBrush is dependent on whatever object is in your scene. So if you have an object in your scene that's not at 0, 0, 0, it'll kind of, it might do weird things with your positioning. But we'll be okay. So we manually projected that. In that Z-remesh, I do kind of want to dictate along these wrinkles. I don't want it to alias along those wrinkles if I can help it. So I am going to tell it with these two showing. I'm going to go into solo mode here. I'm going to go, you know what, Z-remesher, I'm going to simplify this, but I'm going to do BZ Z-remesher guides, and I'm just going to put a loose guide just right along here, just to kind of say, you know what, if you can, give me a line along here, please. So let's go ahead and see how it does. So geometry, Z-remesher half. And now if you look, it did a pretty good job. If you want to make it follow exactly a line, you can actually go through here, and one easy way is just to do like let's do it this way. You can do a slice, and then you can keep groups on, and it'll just put a line right through there. You can also tell it, hey, this curve strength is at 50, put it up to 100, and it'll snap right along there. This is fine. I'm going to go ahead and do another half, and we'll just keep simplifying it down. I think this is pretty simple. So now what I'm going to do is give this shirt some thickness. So I'm going to project the detail onto this surface, and then I'm going to give it a little bit of thickness here. Before I give it some thickness, let's go ahead and do a project all. For you guys, that'll be under project all right there. And that'll work. So now I'm not going to grab the Q mesh, I'm going to do extrude, just because those wrinkles, if you start Q meshing polygons that kind of face each other, they'll start gluing into each other, and we'll do extrude all polygons. Give it some thickness here. Now, of course, it's going to be inverted, so you're going to want to flip that. That'll be under way down here under display properties. Just hit that flip button. Don't hit double, hit flip, so you have the normals correct. Okay, so this has thickness. Now I want to project just this top surface to this object right here. If it's the only one showing, you can be in solo mode. You don't have to see it. It just needs to be visible up here. So we'll do a project all, just make sure. Bring everything back. I'm going to do a crease polygroup under polygroup crease, or under your crease menu under geometry, just so if I do a dynamic preview, it'll keep those edges nice and sharp, which is nice. So I'll isolate this one again. We'll do a quick project all. And hold on just a second. Project all. Is it doing anything? We got this one showing. Control D, isolate this one. Project all. And you're going to see it's having a little bit of a hard time with this, because when I kept hitting half, I kept forgetting to draw another curve. But we can kind of help it out. So I'm going to kind of just soften those sides over there, bring it back, Control D, isolate, project all. And I'm just going to go through here and I'm going to inflate these a bit. Now, if I really wanted to do nice geometry, I could take my Z-remesh and then just kind of clean it up. When we get into actually modifying or retopologizing, I'll talk a little bit more about edge loops and how to utilize ZBrush. And I really do a lot of my cleanup in Maya, and we can get really good results in there with their modeling toolkit and some shortcuts and collapsing and stuff like that. Anyway, so project all, and then bring everything back, Control D, isolate, project all. And where it gets starting to get really crunchy. Now, again, we had a 5 over here on the back, or a 12 density on the Marvelous Designer mesh, which isn't great. So we can fix that as well. And I'm also going to go to BZP and just grab that Z project brush, and we'll just manually go ahead and force this stuff out. Now, this is camera based, and you don't want to have X symmetry turned on, because it will do some wacky things to your meshes if it's trying to project from two sides. And these are some pretty intense wrinkles, which I don't necessarily need for this. And this really, honestly, this thing is placeholder. I don't even know if I want him to have a tank top, but since we started with a tank top doing Marvelous Designer, I figure we'll keep it. We'll just kind of update it with his body. It's good practice. And we got this. Cool. Bring everything back. Control D, isolate, project all. This will be the last projection I do. Bring everything back. Now, you're going to want to be careful, because normally when I do, like if I do a pair of pants, I'll usually cap the holes. But since he's wearing a tank top, and tank tops are automatically kind of thin, I'm also going to do an uncrease all. If we do subdivide anymore, I want it to be uncreased, just to kind of soften these edges up. And I'm also going to go to smooth stronger just because I want to really, this is getting pretty dense. It's 500,000 polygons now. Another thing you could have done is, well, you can still do it. You can UV that first. You know what? Let's just do it. Let's put a little bit more visual interest on this tank top here. So we've got our tank top here. If we, and it has thickness, so I don't even need this original one anymore. We can just go ahead and delete that so we don't get confused. Now with this thing here, let's go ahead and put some noise on it. So we'll use UV. We can do, if we're just doing simple lines, we can probably do just a box projection or a planar projection, which is what surface noise will do, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what I'm going to do is we will drop this down to subdivision level 1. It's been a while since I UV'd in ZBrush. Let's see if I remember how to do it. Z plugin, and we'll do UV master. It's not symmetrical, but I do want to use polygroups. I could, if I want to, I can grab this one, do Control-Shift-X to expand, and then I can hit Control-W, and that'll make all of this one polygroup, so it'll go ahead and put those with it. But in this case, I'm not so sure that's all that necessary, especially this is just placeholder. So I'll have polygroups turned on. That'll split all of these into their own individual shells. And if I want to put, if I want to put my seams in a particular place, you can go into Enable Control Painting. So what first thing we need to do in order to start doing this, before you start doing all this stuff here, always hit Work on Clone. That's the safest thing you can do. Let me hide this window, it's distracting. There we go. So now we're working on a clone here, and now that deleted our subdivision history because we're going to basically copy these UVs onto the other one and then have our subdivision history back. So we have polygroups turned on, and we're going to do Enable Control Painting. Now I want to attract my seams over here on the side. If I don't do that, it'll try and UV this stuff without putting in seams, or it'll find a seam itself, which is okay sometimes, but if you want to give it a more exact seam, we can go, okay, I want to attract the seams here, and we'll go ahead and do it for the inside one, why not? And since it's not symmetrical, let's go ahead and do it on this side here. So we're just going to paint where we want to attract them seams. And if you want to ever protect something, you can type protect, and it's like, I really don't want a seam here. But usually this will do a good enough job. I'll go ahead and do it up here too. We'll go ahead and attract, and I'll go ahead and cut it here. So I want to lay these things out kind of flat. So we'll do it here and here. Cool. So I'm going to hit unwrap and then flatten. I mean, kind of look at what it does. So these long thin ones are the border loops here. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate these things around. So another thing you can do is go over here to your brush, and you can do auto masking. We'll do mask by polygroups up to 100. So when I start rotating these things around, and I don't really care if they're in the 0 to 1. I'm more concerned about their rotation, so that they're rotated the right way. And I don't remember which one is which as far as like which is my outside mesh, which is my inside mesh, but I do know I want those straps up at the top regardless, I think. So we'll do that. And then these little things, I can just move out of the way. It's not a big deal. So hopefully this will UV my lines correctly. If not, we can always go back in here, and we can you can use your move brush to kind of just move the stuff around. These are just flattened polygons really that are going to behave as UVs. So you can go in here and you can do whatever you want. You can mask. Oops. You can mask. You can sculpt if you want to. I'm basically going to try and make these flat. So when the lines come through, they go vertically here. Let's go ahead and make our brush really big here. Now, I am also skewing the textures a little bit, so it's not the healthiest thing to do, but we'll see how it turns out. So I'm just going to there's my UVs. If I like them, I'm going to go back down here to UV Master, unflatten, go to Copy UVs, go back to our original mesh here, and we can go to Paste UVs, and then we got our subdivision history still here. If we want to check and make sure those UVs took, go down here to your textures, Elemento texture map, create, and we'll do new from UV check. Now, I have some stuff hanging out over to the left, but it looks like it's fine. You can also do UV map and see, Looks like it colorized it a little bit here. So everything looks fine. We'll do texture off, and now we'll apply some surface noise to this. So I'm going to go to surface noise, and if we kind of zoom in, it gives us our own noise window here. By default, you're going to have, let's see if I can change my, it's kind of bright in there. Go matcap gray, and we'll turn off colorize. There we go. So let's go back here to noise. You see by default it's kind of this rocky noise. So you can go in here and kind of change these and play with the strength to kind of get the look you want, and also the noise scale. However, I'm going to disregard this because I don't really need pebbly textures. So what I'm going to do is we'll go into, you can either bring in your own alpha if you have tiling alpha you want to use. You can also go into the noise plug. We go into the noise plug here. Let's see if they have something that's just stripes. That'll work, I think. So we'll do stripes here, and we'll hit OK. And in order to get rid of this pebbly stuff, I'm going to do mix basic noise, which is these pebbly things. You can reset this if you want to. I'm going to change that to 0 so it doesn't mix any of that stuff in. But I still have my noise mask strength here. And right now it's 3D. So it's just doing a planar projection straight through the mesh. So if I do the plugin scale, I can scale this down, and I can crank up the strength here. There we go. So we can kind of just give it some noise now, but you're going to see it looks fine from the front, but it kind of skews over here to the left because it's just doing a planar projection. So if I change it to UV, it's going to look at my UVs and project them based on my UVs, which is what you want to do. My UVs are kind of skewed over to the left, as you can see, and skewed over to the right, and you're also going to have a seam here on the side, which is actually, in this case, the fabric. It's okay to have a seam there because it probably does have a seam there, like a t-shirt does, maybe. Anyway, I'll do nicer UVs later. I really don't care about this that much right now. This is just kind of a tangent. So we'll do noise scale. If you wanted to, you can go back into your original UV mesh, flatten it again, move your UVs around, and fix it. But I'll do the plugin scale. Just keep scaling this down. So hit OK. And now it's applied to our mesh just as displacement. So if I turn off the noise, it's going to disappear. If you want to actually apply it to your mesh, what I would suggest is you're going to need enough resolution. So if I go here and I go, you know what, take this noise, apply it to the mesh. It applied it, but it's kind of grainy. So number one, you're going to want to hit Control D, or divide it up as much as you can so that when you apply it to the mesh, it picks up all the detail. Another thing you want to do is probably give yourself a little bit of wiggle room, or a little bit of play, a little bit more control. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm also going to add a geometry morph target, store morph target. So that's going to basically store this blank section here. So now with all of that done, I can go, okay, noise, apply to mesh. That goes ahead and applies my noise to my mesh. And because I have it on a layer, I can go, you know what? I want it to be a little bit more or a little bit less. If you want to overcrank it, you can go up to like 2, and you can overcrank it, or you can drop it down to like 0.6. So you have a little bit more flexibility after you apply it. And then if you like that, hit Bake All, and you also have your morph target. So with a morph target, you can go to BM morph brush, and you can just go in here and you can morph it back. Any areas you don't want it, you can just morph it out. You can also do switch, and that will switch the stored morph target, bring that to the front, and then it'll put your lines, in this case, is your morph. So now you can go in here and you can kind of paint in where you want those lines to show up. Another thing I forgot to say is before you apply your noise, surface noise, you can actually go in here and mask, and wherever you mask, it won't put any noise. So for instance, if you wanted to say apply the noise but maybe not along these borders here, you can isolate that border, do Control-Shift-X to kind of expand out a bit. You can mask that, invert it, and you can even fuzz that mask out. I'm going to hit Q and just kind of blur that, and now those lines won't show up where it's masked. And then if you hit apply, or if you want to see it without the mask, go to your masking, Turn off view mask, you can see, oh, okay, I see what it's doing. So, good times. But I don't need any of that. And honestly, I don't even need that noise. So let's go grab our geometry. So much stuff in here. Surface noise off. Alrighty. And then we'll go and bring everything back. And let's see what else we want to do with this guy. I'm going to rethink some of this stuff here. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to delete that. He's kind of looking goofy, which is okay. All right. So let's see where we want to go with this guy. So what I'm thinking is it's going to be like a vaguely tactical Marines, Special Forces, maybe vaguely futuristic, just to give myself a little leeway. We can do exercises that's just like copy this Marine boot exactly, and that's a good exercise to do, and it is pretty fulfilling. But that's also kind of work, you know. It's actually easy. If you have a really good reference, it's a lot easier to just make something exactly than it is to try and like make something new and interesting. So I may resort to that, where I'm just like, you know what? I'm not feeling overly creative today, so I'm just going to make this thing. Also, I got to go back to my brushes here. There we go. So mask by polygroups down, and we are in smooth stronger. And still doesn't want to. Oh, smooth stronger is just RGB for some reason. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we've got our skull here, and let's start thinking about what we want to put on this thing. So let's go ahead and let's give him a vest real quick. So, I mean, it's kind of cool to just walk out onto the battlefield with a tank top on, but probably you're going to want a vest here. So we'll have the tank top underneath, and we can just kind of layer up, just like I'm doing with my sci-fi female, is we're going to start with like a skin-tight tech suit, and then we're going to put plastic and metal bits on top of that, and then we're going to put armor on top of that, and then maybe we'll put her an entire mech robot. I don't know. So we'll go ahead and hide this and this. And he still has eyeballs. Did I move these things around? All right. He looks a little dazed. Let's rotate these down just a tad. And we'll go to rotate, and we'll just... All right, good enough for government work. So if we want to make a vest here, probably my first instinct would be to just mask and either extract or zero mesh and give it thickness. We could also use the topology brush, and we can just retopologize and do thickness as well. You know what? Let's keep it easy. So I'm going to duplicate this guy off. We'll grab him, go into solo mode here, and we'll just give him kind of a vague vest here. So we'll go ahead and just mask where we want our vest to go here. And so what I've been doing recently, kind of Marine Corps vests. I'm not going to do one of those. I'll do... Again, it's just going to be a little bit more stylized. It's going to be a little bit smaller too. So we can just kind of dictate where we want this vest to go. And we can also decide, do we want this thing to be like straps on the side, or we want it to be Velcro? World is our oyster. We'll kind of feel it out as we go. Now, of course, the vest isn't going to be skin tight, so I'm going to be losing a lot of this surface deformation. But I think that's kind of where I want the vest to go. It's going to scoop right around here. It's not covering overly much. That's okay. And then on the back, I'm going to raise this up a little bit here. Then on the front, let's raise it up. We can also add attachments to this if we want to do like a nape protector or some other, or, you know, put on those crotch protectors, those little triangle things down here. We can certainly do that. We'll kind of make this dip down. Something like that. So we'll hit Control W. We'll isolate this. We'll go ahead and delete hidden. Oh, another thing I want to do eventually is do a fantasy character. Speaking of Roman breastplate right here. So that would be fun. Why not? So we might even take this guy and modify him to make him different character type, since I've already have a base mesh, and we can start doing that. And another thing I need to do is, right now he's just a Dynamesh, so he has no mouth bag and he has clay toes, which isn't a big deal. Like I would imagine this guy's not going to be walking around in flip flops anytime soon. But if we did want to do like Roman sandals, maybe I want separate toes. I don't know. So what we're going to do tonight also is Z-remesh this guy so I can make him a little bit more usable, like with an actual mouth, and also kind of clean this area up around here. This can start getting really crappy when you're trying to sculpt something nice. So what my rule of thumb is, and somebody asked on my YouTube channel, like when do you use Dynamesh and when do you use Z-remesh? Basically, if I'm not going to be doing anything crazy to this guy, like going, oh, you know what if he was like this? If I'm not going to be doing any of that, and it's like, I'm going to be refining this guy and maybe adding, a little bit of this and then maybe a little bit of this and maybe a little more wrinkles on his corner of his eyes. If that's all I'm doing, not breaking the silhouette, then I'll go ahead and Z-remesh him, get some nice geometry, and just continue to detail him. If I'm going to make major changes, you can, after you Z-remesh them, you can make major changes, Z-remesh them again, project that detail. You can even freeze transformations and kind of do some fancy stuff. So it's not a deal breaker. But generally speaking, I just have my Dynamesh here, and then I want to go and Z-remesh it when he's not going to be doing a lot of crazy stuff here. But let's continue with our vest here. So we got our vest here. I'm going to do, and actually I probably should have just mask this off at a lower subdivision level, because this is just a lot of polygons to have to sit here and deal with, but you can do that next when you do this. So I'm going to go to my macro here, and I'm just going to do a polish polygroup border, and all that is just going in here to your masking menu, mask by border, invert that mask, and then do a polish by features. And honestly, I think it grows the mask, or hold on, it shrinks the mask, and then it inverts. No, it shrinks, grows the mask, inverts it, and then it polishes the polygroup border, and then it unmasks. This is what that macro does. But I didn't make it, but I'm pretty sure that's what it does. So you can do it manually. You can make your own macro. So I've got this thing here, and we're going to go to our Z plugin. Actually, we probably don't need to do that. The Pixelogic guy said that Z-remesher runs kind of a decimated version, so let's see how well it does. I am going to make this symmetrical. Even if his body isn't symmetrical or something, I can force Z-remesher to be symmetrical when it goes, so that's fine. Let's go ahead and do geometry. Z-remesher 5 is fine. Adapted down to 0. We want nice even quads. Cool. Thanks for showing up, everybody. Thank you, Pepper, for being stinky. She doesn't care. Okay, we're Z-remeshed here, and then I'm going to go half. Just keep hitting half, and Z-remesh half, and that'll give me really low-res geometry. And now I can go in here with Q-mesh. Actually, let's start breaking this thing up. Why not? So I'm going to be moving this thing around. So if this thing comes forward, let's say it kind of wraps around using this thing here. So what I'm going to do, the easiest way to do this, I'm going to insert a single edge loop right here, and then I'm going to hold down Control Shift, switch over to my select lasso, and just grab those edges. And now I can do a delete hidden. So that's going to be one split, and then probably these things split. So if this thing wraps up and around, you know what? Maybe it doesn't. We'll just leave it like that. So we can go ahead and do we want to do thickness now? Let's go ahead and get it into position first. So I'm going to inflate this thing a bit, and then I'm going to, obviously the vest isn't going to have molded in Batman Forever nipples or anything, so it's going to be more of a general shape here. And we'll go ahead and flare this out. And we'll go ahead and spin this over here. And in this center area here, it's not going to go back into his back. Oh, you know what? When I start sculpting, no, I guess it is. Let me see. Yeah, that's fine. So I'm going to sculpt this thing out here, and I can just kind of use the sculpting tools just to kind of... Now, it's not to say the vest is going to be loose on him. It's still going to be a pretty tight vest. It's going to be cinched into his body and stuff, but it's not going to be contoured to his body like a cocktail gown or anything like that. And yeah, I think we're looking pretty good. And again, with the cool thing about working in layers, and same thing with the sci-fi female I'm doing on the Pixel channel, is it's just more opportunities for cool renders. Like you can do a cool render with just like her tech suit on and her helmet and have a cool piece, and then you can like layer her up, or you can put her in her tech suit inside of a mech and have a cool piece, and then you can armor her all up and have a cool piece, and then you can have, you know, just some variations and stuff. So even if I don't end up using this vest in my final render, I'll at least have, number one, I'll have a vest I can use on other characters, which is good to have a library of that stuff. And number two, I can have more renders of him just kind of decked out with like different loadouts and stuff, and kind of pad your portfolio that way. Okay, so we're looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and here go to QMesh, polygroup all, and this one's safe to QMesh, I think. So we can kind of give it some thickness this away, and I'm going to go into solo mode here, and I'm going to hold down, I'm going to start QMeshing this inside and hold down shift just so I'm pulling along those surface normals. And there we go. So now I've got a vest kind of going, and so if I want to pull, I'm going to pull this part back, and just to make this easier to work with, because right now what I'm going to have to do is I can go into like brush, topology brush here. So if we go into my brush menu here, I can go into auto masking topological, change my range a little bit here. And I can kind of move this, there we go. I can move this independently and kind of work that way. I can make these different poly groups and kind of work that way, or I can also go in here with rotate, and I can just drag along my mesh, and now this part is masked out and that part isn't. Or I can temporarily just split these into two separate poly groups and kind of work with them independently, and then later on weld them back up, or you know what, just put like a strap over it, you know, if you want to hide your seams. It's, again, we're just making stuff, so it's not a huge deal. So speaking of that, let's go ahead and we'll just do that. So I'm going to go here to insert single edge loop here, go to solo mode here, and just to kind of separate these out, I'm going to hold down Alt, and then we're just going to Q-mesh all those poly groups straight through. There we go. And then I can do, if I grab a little piece of this, Control-Shift-A, I can split off that other side, and we're good to go. If I'm going to go to quick save, whenever I start splitting stuff off, I like to go grab my last quick save here. Okay, if you do want to see this guy actually walking around in a cocktail gown, I do have that. It's on my Facebook page. I did a WrapX tutorial that basically it sets the Marvelous Designer avatar into your character and also rigs it, and you can even transfer colorized information if you want to. And so I did that, and then since he's rigged in Marvelous Designer, you can go into like the showcase room floor, and I put on the default red dress, and he like sachets around, and it was a test of how to do that more than anything, but it was interesting. His shoulders were very broad. It was my commander dude. I'm gonna bridge 2 points here. The what? My Facebook. But it's been a while. I might have tweeted it out too, actually, now that I think about it. That might be easier to find. You know what? I'm going to just, that's fine. So now, at any point during this, if I don't like this geometry, I can just isolate this here. We can do delete hidden, and I can go, you know what? I want to try ZRemesher same now that I move this stuff around. Then it'll give me better geometry. And I can go through here and QMesh polygroup all. So always keep in mind, you're not stuck with the geometry that ZRemesher gives you. You can always re-ZRemesh. So now in this case, you know what? This one's going to have to come out. It's going to pull forward, and then this one usually is back in here. I can go and turn this one off. isolate this one. I'll tap it. Oh. And topological for my standard brush. Yeah, topological on a high resolution mesh is really going to slow down your brush. So if you ever see a slowdown, it might be that. Might also be some other stuff too. So we'll go ahead and put this part of the vest here. And then this part of the vest we'll bring back. And we will just have this kind of either Velcro or strap over. I haven't decided yet. We'll put this here. And again, this can just totally be a concept mesh. I'm not trying to do a final vest or anything, but I am trying to look for nicer geometry maybe. I don't want to get too sloppy too fast. Although if I am trying to do fast stuff, I probably should be. I should be erring on the side of getting stuff on, because I don't want to go through all of this like noodly moving stuff around and skin thickness and stuff like that if I'm going to be like, you know what, vests are dumb. I don't want to do a vest anymore. Or somebody else walks by and goes, you know what, we don't have the budget for vests. Or it doesn't work within the lore of this guy. So it's better just to kind of get this stuff sculpted in. Let's go ahead and update our guy here. So I'm going to isolate everything but him, and just really quickly, we're going to give him some rudimentary stuff. So I need space in between his toes, and we did this on the Pixelogic channel. I'm going to do it here too. Shouldn't take too long. There we go. So I'm going to pop some spacers in between his toes, kind of like what you see when you're, oops. Let's go W. There we go. When you're painting your toenails, you'll put in those little foam things. So I'm going to put some spacers in there. I'm going to use these as subtractive brushes here. Come on. There we go. So I'm going to rotate this around here. And we can go ahead and pull that out. And now I can go into W, Control Shift, and we'll just drop these in like so. Rotate them around a little bit. And they're not going to look pretty for a long time until we're done Z-remeshing. Let's go ahead and grab these, Control Shift A, and let's go ahead and split these off and drop these down just a little bit. Make sure they go all the way through the mesh. Let's make them a little bit taller too. There we go. So now his toes are cool. Now let's Alt tap him, and let's go give him a mouth bag real quick. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to mask this space right here. Not all of it. And it doesn't need to be very big. It just needs to be something for Z-remesh to kind of grab onto here. And we will go Control W. I'm going to isolate. Let's go back to select rectangle here. Isolate that, mask it, invert that mask, pull this back here. And if I just want to see that, I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to isolate this, and I'm going to turn on double. So now I kind of see, ooh, spooky. And now I can go ahead and just like inflate this mouth bag up a little bit. Now, again, doesn't need to be pretty, but let's go ahead and make it mouth bag-ish. So I'll go ahead and pull this back, and I'll go ahead and use the inflate brush. Oh, well, this is doubled. I'm going to go ahead and hit flip. To do it so that my brush behaves nicely in here. And if I control drag, bring everything else back, and control drag again. Is it Dynamesh? No. There we go, at Dynamesh. So now let's go see what it did here. And that wasn't a necessary step, but if you want to kind of refine this mouth bag a little bit, you can kind of Dynamesh a mouth bag in here, or you can actually go in there and add multiple edge loops. Let's go ahead and inflate. And again, the mouth bag isn't pretty, but hopefully Z-remesher will give me a prettier mouth bag. Let's go ahead and smooth this out. And again, he's not going to look very good for a minute. But that's okay. We can fix all of this. So now he's got a mouth bag in there, and he's got spacers in between his toes. So let's go ahead and shoot this guy to the top. And I've got my spacers here. I'm going to do a subtractive mesh on this guy. I'm going to merge him down with that subtractive selected, control drag. And then I'll redynamesh with space in between his toes. Now I'm not going to touch those. Maybe I should smooth them a little bit. So ZRemesher will see those as different plane breaks here. And now he's got a mouth bag here. So let's duplicate him off. And with him selected, let's go ahead and so we've got him selected, and let's go ahead and ZRemesh this guy. So I'm going to go to Geometry, ZRemesher. Let's do a target polygon count of 5 is fine. I'm going to change the adaptive down to 10. I don't need perfectly even quads. And again, if I want to, I can also try putting in brush curves around here, but I'm actually probably just going to redraw that topology. So ZRemesher, beep, boop, beep. Let's see how this does. I have X turned on. You can use an insert mesh for a mouth bag. You can, in fact, it probably would be a lot easier than doing what I did if you do like a am I on camera? A teardrop shape with like the ridge coming out. You could pop that in and then carve it out, and then you'll have a nice perfect mouth bag in there. And you know, it used to be my excuse was like, well, I don't ever make characters, so I never got around to making one of those. But now that I seem to be making characters all the time with the live stream stuff, it's probably not a very good excuse anymore. This eyeball and mouth and ears, I'm going to retopologize. So this is fine. I'm also going to throw a little bit more topology in those areas. I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to take this guy, and under my ZRemesh properties, I'm going to do use polypaint. And for my color density, I'm going to say I want like 1.8 in the face area. So I'm going to make sure I have RGB turned on for my standard brush. And I'm just going to paint in my face area and in my ear. I want a little bit more geometry than the rest of his body, just in the face here. And then if you want geometry less, you can go geometry color density at like 0.5, and that'll change it to a blue color, and that'll tell us ZRemesher, don't put any detail here. Excuse me. But let's go ahead and paint his hands too. I'm going to do a color density of like 1.25 just to give us a little bit more love in this area. Or you can also just mask. Oops. Or do visibility, invert that mask, and then we'll just do a fill, color fill. Let's actually blur this out. Okay, so a little bit more dense in the face and hands. And let's try that ZRemesher again. My little Pepper Ann. Yeah, you are. Alrighty, so let's see what we got here. He's got kind of a high active point, and that might be a problem, but we'll see. I mean, it looks much better here. I am thrilled with this topology. Toes are fine, hands are excellent. Holy crap! Let me see. Let's take a select lasso and see if we have any. Oh yeah, these are nice hands. No spirals. Very nice. Okay, so I'm very happy with this except for the head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to clone it off, and then I'm going to insert well, you know what? Before I clone that off, select him and delete him so I don't get confused here. I'm going to have both these guys showing. I'm going to do a quick project all, and then I'm going to clone him off. I'm going to insert a Z-sphere. Take the Z-sphere, hit X to go across X symmetry, scale it down, and we'll move this out of the way, and we'll hide it. There we go. I'm going to go to Matcap Pearl and drop it down to a medium gray. You'll see why in a second. And then with just the high res showing, I'm going to take my Z-sphere. I'm going to go down to my topology, and I'm going to under edit, or not, don't go into edit, go into select and grab that cloned off topology here, and that'll just load up that topology. I'm going to control drag to unmask any points, control shift to show all the points. Make sure I'm in edit topology mode and I'm in X symmetry mode. And now I can go through here and modify this to whatever I'd like. The mouth did okay actually, but what I'm going to really change up here is the eyeballs. I'm going to hold down Alt with draw turned on, so up here Q, just turn that on, and I'm just going to delete around the eyeballs. The ears is fine actually, so really just the eyeballs and a little bit of work around the mouth and I think we're good. And the only reason I'm doing any work at all around the eyeballs is because when I start sculpting in those areas I want it to be nice. There we go. So now I'm going back into draw mode and I'm just going to go with drawing and I'm going to just redraw this topology in here. Here, and we're going to go up one edge loop. And generally speaking, you want, let's get rid of that one. You want, what do you want? You want concentric edge rings around orifices or orbits like the eyeball and the mouth. You just want concentric edge rings, so when you go in and you weight it and you animate it, it's easy to kind of select and weight and stuff. Hold down shift and turn off dynamic so you can get a really small move brush temporarily. And then we'll go back into draw mode here and we'll do the lower lid. Now this also might be a slightly premature retopology. Usually I have the mesh a little tighter than I do now before I go in and retopologize, but I'm excited to kind of just keep moving forward. So, and then once you have the rings drawn out, you can just very quickly go back and forth. Oops. We're kind of working small here. Sorry about that. So back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And if these shadows are getting in the way, you can go in here into render properties and just turn off render shadows if you want. I'm always afraid to do that for some reason because it seems like ZBrush is more prone to crash. It's probably not true. It's, but it feels that way. Like if I'm retopologizing and I turn shadows off, it just feels like it crashes more. I don't have a huge problem with ZBrush crashing while I retopologize. Occasionally it'll get weird, and if it does get weird, we'll walk through it and stuff. But if you want to, go ahead and hit quick save as you work, and then make sure you go in and turn on edit topology again, because it will turn that off as part of the saving process. So rings, and normally I also wouldn't be overly concerned about topology, like when I'm retopologizing for like hard edge stuff in a concept-y kind of way. But for this stuff, I am keeping my rings concentric. So it is taking me a little bit longer here. But shouldn't be too much longer here. So we'll back around here. Anyways, reading any good books lately? I am listening to, what am I listening to? The one about H.H. Holmes, the one they're going to possibly make a Leonardo DiCaprio movie about, Devil in the White City, I think it's called. And I go on these true crime jags. I went on one like 2 years ago and I watched like everything true crime from Netflix and Forensic Files and all that good stuff. So I feel like I already know the story pretty well. It's like, have I read this book before? Because I must have watched like 2 H.H. Holmes documentaries and then all the little, made-for-TV movie type stuff about it. Serial killers, H.H. Holmes. So I kind of already know exactly what's going to happen, but it's still interesting. They talk a lot about the World's Fair and electricity and old-timey Thomas Edison stuff. All right, so we got that retopologized. And one more ring up here. And I'm just switching between. So I got Q to go into draw mode, and then Q, hold on, Alt to delete. I'm just using W to move, and when I'm in this mode, it will go ahead and snap to my mesh here. And then to reset, I just tap off my mesh. Now I'm probably not going to resolve any of this stuff, so if I do want to get rid of some of those, I can just tap on them and then delete them. And we'll just make this a triangle for now. And we'll turn that back into a square. And we'll put another ring in here. Last ring, I think. And this is the kind of stuff where I would just do a really quick coat in Maya, and then all my cleanup, or a really quick coat in ZBrush, and then all my cleanup would be done in Maya using their tools. You can smooth out stuff and make that really nice. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of nose work. Let's see. Click on the, just need to control click on any point, model, continue laying vertices. Let's see. So if I delete these ones here, there we go. And then I can move this stuff around. So if I start drawing, draw. And then I guess I can just keep drawing this loop. And if I want to do this, control click, and it'll, so I'd have to control click where I want to start from. Okay, cool. That'll save me a bit of time. I'm still going to be used to going out here. It's a damn muscle memory. Get used to going, okay, now I want to start from here, so I want to make sure I start from there, and I want to make sure I start from there again. There we go, nice. A little bit faster. Come on. Maybe if I could be a little bit more accurate. Boy, it is doing a number. Come on. And for inside the nostrils, I don't really care that much, so we'll just go ahead and close these out. And that's going to be nasty, so we'll go ahead and fix that. Move it. All right, so we'll draw right in here. Cool. And one last little area, the mouth. So this mouth, the only thing I really kind of care about is these concentric rings. I probably should have given ZBrush more of a mouth shape. It usually does a really good job around the mouth. In this case, it kind of went mouth out. So I'm going to go ahead and just draw this line in there. I'm going to force this topology to kind of flow along here, and then I'll just move that topology up. So there's my ring that goes around the inside of the mouth now. Cool. And this stuff we can just snap. If you want to add more rings, you can just go around the mesh here. And if we want to resolve this triangle a little bit better, you can try and look for another triangle. I have another one here, so we can kind of try and see if we can just move this stuff around. It's not a huge deal in this particular case, because like right here, this is going to be a problem because it's the corner of the nose, and I kind of want that line. But again, this kind of cleanup I would definitely do. I would usually do in Maya, but it's kind of nice to maybe have some more geometry this way. So I'm just going to pull these over a bit. I'll kind of even this mesh out just a tad. Boring stuff, I know. Bear with me. And then the corner of the mouth, let's go ahead and get rid of this triangle here. I'll force that down here. Oops. Go to draw mode. Back down. And we'll get rid of that. Alrighty. And I don't care about the triangle inside the mouth. I think that will work. This is probably going to smooth terribly, but we will survive. So if I hit A, yeah, well, I would say that, let's see, okay, that's fine. I do retopologize and, geez, you name it, 3D Coat, Maya, Modo, all those things, and it hardly topo gun, and it almost never saves me any time. I don't know what it is, but and like, oh, I can grab all these edges and I can just move them around. I can take a cylinder and I can snap it, and it never saves me any time. I almost am 100% fast, just retopologizing in ZBrush really quickly, going into Maya and cleaning it up. Is I've timed it. I've tried my hardest, and maybe I just need to be faster in those other programs. But man, it doesn't make a bit of difference for me. So we got our adaptive skin here. So I'm going to go to append, and there's our, you know what, just to make sure I did that, let's go make adaptive skin. And we'll go to insert, and we'll grab that last skin Z-sphere. Looks right. With the Z-sphere we don't need anymore, just delete it. And then this thing, this old geometry we don't need anymore, delete it. And now we got this one and our high-res dude. So now let's go ahead and get our, let's hit X, and then we'll just project this detail back. So I'm going to hit project all, and then we'll go into solo mode, make sure there's no major errors. Looks like his ear might be acting a little bit weird here. Let's go ahead and help it out a little bit here. So we're in X mode here. I'm gonna, oh, you know why? If I go into solo mode here, and we go down and we turn off double, he's flipped. So go ahead and flip him. Sometimes I forget I'm like flipping mouth geometry and then all that stuff. So that can usually bite me in the butt if I'm not paying attention here. Anyway, so now we've got this thing. Let's go ahead and do a project all. Solo, much better. Control D. Now if it melts it too much, you can go over here, or I should say averages the vertices too much. Go turn off the smooth modifier, hit Control D, and then do project all. And then you can turn that smooth modifier back on and divide, and then project all. So we're basically just grabbing our detail back, whatever little detail we had on the original Dynamesh sculpt. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's really not. In this case, not a whole lot. If you want to make sure you're getting it all, just let's go to Matcap Gray again. You can have turn solo on and then just click back and forth between them. Looks like we might have one more subdivision level to go, so we'll go Control D one more time. And we'll just do a project all. Yeah, whenever you get into, what's it called? Z-Modeler, when we get into Z-Modeler, arbitrary, and that's why I do my cleanup in Maya a lot, just because of the ability to have arbitrary n-gons and polygons, so I can just kind of cut through meshes and redo topology flow and that kind of stuff. That's definitely slower in ZBrush, but as far as just getting a blanket of quads, Z-remesher, and retopologizing manually in here is as fast as it gets for me. And then clean up in Maya, and then I'm out. Let's see. So we got, okay, we don't even need this original Dynamesh anymore. And there's our new subdivided mesh with all the, and it's even better because we localize some of that geometry. So we have more polygons in the face, which is probably what we want, and less polygons in the body, and then a little more polygons in the hands for detail stuff. And now we also have subdivision history. So I can drop this down to subdivision level 1 and start making changes. So let's go ahead and fix his mouth a little bit here. He looks like, I don't know what he looks like. So let's go ahead and let's make some polygroups really quickly to kind of just make this a little bit easier. You can go through here and you can hold down R and just kind of rotate and kind of mask these things off and move this stuff around. But if we're going to be going back and forth a lot, let's go ahead and be doing mouth bag stuff. I'm going to hold down Control Shift, and I'm going to select these inside rings here. Like so, and if we invert that, okay, we do this. Let's go ahead and do auto groups. And now we can grab both of these poly groups here. Let's go back to our select rectangle here. And that can be our mouth bag polygroup. And then if we want to do a jaw polygroup here, we can isolate just this outside shell, and then we can go through here and hold down Control, and we can kind of mask this out. Hit Control W, and now if we want to just move his jaw around, we can just grab this and mask it. And the mouth bag, we should probably grab the mouth bag too. So we'll grab this and this. Although really, dang it, we need like a half a mouth bag. So I'm going to grab the mouth bag here. I'm going to turn on double. And we'll go ahead and isolate. Get rid of these polygons here. There we go. So we'll do this polygroup and this polygroup can be 1. And then for temporarily, this polygroup and this polygroup can be 1. And now I've got an actual, so now I can just hold down R, or tap R and then Control click, and then I've got this here, so I can kind of move this stuff around. And I can also mask the bottom lip, which is really what I wanted, to mask the bottom lip and the upper lip quickly. And I'll go ahead and inflate these. Let's keep this high, and then we'll get this up in there, and then we'll inflate them together. And if you want to leave a little space so it's a little easier to kind of get in there, you certainly can do that. Let's crank up our subdivisions here. There we go, fixed mouth-ish. And go ahead and close this. And at this point, it's kind of got a little thing here, so let's go ahead and we'll make that lower lip just go right up into that upper lip here. And then if we want to, we can pull out, or we can start sculpting around a little bit, this kind of stuff. Where the mouth kind of goes in. References for like faces and anatomy, or for faces, it's, you know, I'll try and find a person I like to look at, and I'll also look at like some Jordu shell sculpts, some traditional sculpt stuff. For anatomy, I went and grabbed Arnold. Now he's obviously a little thicker than Arnold. He's a little more cartoony than Arnold. I went and grabbed Arnold reference that I had, some bodybuilding reference, and I just grabbed that. And the thing is, we don't have to necessarily go super bodybuilder with this dude. Like, if we want to, we can completely change his body type. All the landmarks are there, though. So if we want to make him like maybe more world's strongest man, we can kind of flesh him out a little bit, or kind of soften him up a little bit. We can also make him scrappy, and we can kind of just start moving this stuff in, and he can be more of like a ripped little dude. Now that we have subdivision levels, you can very quickly go in here and start making major changes to his musculature, but all the landmarks aren't really going to change. So we can make him thin, we can make him thick, we can make him really thick, and you know, I'll fix them up later, but basically it would be like you'd have a little upper lip, and you've got the 3 lobes in the upper lip here. So if I go, and we still have this isolated, so it's really nice to go in here and go, okay, let's give this guy his upper lip lobes here. And then we'll invert that. And then on the bottom, it's going to be more like 2 lobes for the bottom lip here. And we have topological on, so it's being a little bit slow. Whenever I sense any hesitation at all from ZBrush, I go and check and see what my brush settings are.
Do you also work in Maya?
I work in Maya a lot, mostly for production stuff. Like most of my heavy lifting is done in ZBrush, but I'll use Maya for like production stuff, just naming files and the rigging part when we, you know, hand stuff off to the riggers and the animators. Our whole pipeline goes through Maya. So, and I do my retopology cleanup in Maya. So there's that. Oh, let's also take a look at his toes here. So it Z-remeshed his toes and they look fine. if you want to, you can also make polygroups for these individual toes if you want to go in and sculpt them individually. I'm not probably going to care that much, but I will go through here just because, and I'm going to go through here and inflate these out. And it looks like I lost a little bit of detail on his toes, but again, they're pretty easy. So let's go ahead and inflate these bad boys up. And it might be easier, as silly as it sounds, to go in here and actually, do make polygroups for the toes here, so you can actually get on the side and kind of get in there. I'm not going to do it while you guys are watching, because as exciting as the world of toe sculpting is, I won't force you to sit here and watch that. Although I'm going to eventually run out of stuff to do, so I may eventually just show up and put on some royalty-free Enya, and we can just really rock out to some toe sculpting. Anyway, toes, face. Oh, we got to make teeth and tongue and eyeballs too, don't we? Let's see, am I in the mood for that? What am I in the mood for? Alt tap. Stroke. There we go. Well, I get in a weird state where I can't select things. All right, let's just do some... I do sculpt in clay for anatomy class. I teach anatomy at Gemini School here in Austin, and I am in the industry. I work for Certain Affinity here in Austin. Yeah, so we do anatomy sculpts in clay just because it's fun to do. We also do anatomy in my ZBrush class. I teach anatomy in ZBrush, and it's fun to do anatomy sculpting in ZBrush. It's really fun, but it's also, when I teach anatomy to students, I can't be like, well, a prerequisite is you learn ZBrush. So what we do is we take some Chavant NSP and some armatures, and we just go to town doing it. We draw it too. We draw the anatomy, and then we sculpt the anatomy. And by doing both of those, I'm hoping that you get a little bit better feel. That's how I learned anatomy. Was at Ringling. We did maquette sculptures to kind of learn anatomy, and it's a good supplement to just doing it in 2D, I think. And then in my ZBrush class, we do a quick refresher on, anatomy and just doing it in ZBrush. And it goes pretty fast in ZBrush, obviously. In traditional sculpting, it's a little bit more trying. But at least with clay, students can just pick up clay and they're off to the races. Everybody can use clay. Not everybody can just pick up ZBrush and start sculpting anatomy. I mean, you can, but again, I can't make that a prerequisite for the anatomy class, so. Yeah, so let's do let's do some armor bits. Let me think what this guy's gonna have on him. So I think most of his hard edge stuff is probably gonna be on like some drop leg mounts, and maybe a weapon, and probably his helmet here. So let's kind of see and also his helmet's gonna kind of dictate the look and feel for this guy. So I'm gonna go ahead and, you know what? Let's Dynamesh all this together. Let's go ahead and inflate this. Okay, that's fine. So I'm going to shoot this to the top. I'm going to shoot this to the top. I'm going to Dynamesh these together. There we go. And let's see what we want to make here. I've got kind of okay, so if this guy is going to be out and about, maybe he's got some night vision, and maybe, okay, so we kind of played around with this idea before where he's going to have, this can kind of be like armor here. Let's go ahead and crank my intensity up, and I'm also going to move my lazy radius up so I can use it, and then just toggle that off with the L key. So for this thing, let's go ahead and, he's got to be able to see through here. So we can kind of go ahead and just start like carving this stuff out. And if we don't like this, we can just completely get rid of it and just try something else. It's not a big deal. And if we want to push this back here, let's go ahead and use our clay brush here. And for some reason, I can't. It just looks kind of goofy. So what I'm going to do is delete that. So I'm going to take this guy here, and I'm going to duplicate him off. And I'm going to turn off project, turn off blur, and we'll crank our resolution up just a bit on that Dynamesh here. And I'm going to deflate him. And turn off polypaint here. So now let's see. Let's kind of simplify that a bit. I'm looking at some like general helmet reference, and none of it really pops out to me as anything worthwhile. So let's just have a little bit of fun. Let's go across the x-axis here, and we'll just kind of start doing a mask thing. So we'll just build up a mask here. And we can kind of maybe make it skull-ish, but it won't be like a literal skull, you know what I mean? So we can go ahead and like, now if he is going to have some serious night vision, which can kind of be cool. Whoa, let me turn my phone noise off here. If he is going to have some serious night vision, he can have, you know, obviously he needs to see out of here. So maybe if we just make this all one piece, so we can kind of, and then this way, I've seen some really cool night vision goggles lately where they've got like 4, like 1, 2, 3, 4 cylinders coming out. So we can try maybe some of that here. And then we can build this bridge back up here. So we'll kind of do a shell maybe. And again, we're just concepting, so this can all change. And if we want him to look a little bit more aggressive in his plastic shell, we can kind of just fake some. Let's try this.
At what point in the process do you make scars?
To oh, for like a skin, probably when I'm in Painter. I can do it in ZBrush, but it depends on how production oriented I am. If it's for like video games and I'm doing like character variants and stuff, I'm not going to do any of that in ZBrush just because it's not going to break the silhouette. Now if he has a chopped off arm or like half his face is burnt up, maybe. But if it's just like some scars and maybe some crusty skin, all of that can be done non-destructively in Painter later on. And even things as like crazy as stitches and stuff, you can do like a little Mortal Kombat thing. Let's do, can breathe through here. Look at this helmet stuff.
It's built on YouTube, right?
Yeah, it'll be, so yeah, all the other previous, so I do live streaming on this channel that goes to my YouTube. Just Google Pavlovich YouTube, and if you go to the playlist, it'll be the first playlist there. And then I do a live stream for Pixelogic. These guys look like Davy Jones. I do a live stream for Pixelogic too, and so you go to their channel, and all of my live streams are on their YouTube channel. So between those two, you should get really sick of the sound of my voice. There we go here, and then we can have straps that come back, and then this can be a separate piece here. So we can kind of maybe give him maybe a little bit of a tactical tech suit underneath. And if he needs like a rebreather or a filter in here, we can maybe hide some of that stuff in here. And then if this needs to clip back, we can say, you know what, let's go here and here. Something like this. What else can we do? I'm not getting much from my reference here. It's mostly just super tactical, like here's a helmet with the Rhino mount, and I'm not against doing that, but I don't want to do just, let's make a U.S. Marine. A little fun with it. Okay, so With this here, let's see if we got any more. Let's start breaking this up. So if I want to go ahead and say, you know what, I want this to be a separate piece here, and I'll just keep moving along. I'm going to go into here, and I'm going to mask this out. Let's go into my mask pin. I'm just going to break this piece off here. So let's say, you know what, we'll keep this guy. We'll save it for later, maybe. Or we can start building around it and see if this kind of thing appeals to the overall design, because who knows. Or we can work with it separately if it makes it a little bit easier. So once we have this area kind of masked out, you can Control-Tap to sharpen that mask up. I guess we can go ahead and take this with it. Control-W, isolate it. Control-Shift-Click, doesn't matter, those holes are fine. We'll go ahead and split hidden, and then I'm going to do a quick close holes. Now if I grab this close holes, it's going to grab those eyelids, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that, and then we'll mask that, invert that mask, and then we can just do the thickness like that if we really want to. And re-Dynamesh. And then we can kind of just clean that up. Anyway, that just gives us a little bit of a quick shell to work with. We can also start bumping up that resolution here. Bumping up that resolution here. Is it doing it? Yeah, I guess it is. So now we can go in here and go, okay. We can start making decisions like, do we want this to be more modular? So now this piece can kind of start popping out. And now when it goes around when anything goes around and touches the skin, you want to make sure you leave some padding. So like you'll see if you look at tactical goggles, they're going to have a big foam piece because you don't obviously want steel right up or plastic right up against your skin all day. Not to say that this guy isn't hardcore enough to handle it, but you know, realistically, you don't want to die from an infection from a stupid pair of goggles, right? So let's go ahead and we'll put a little bit of space in there. And we can just mask this, and maybe we'll mount something in here that can kind of be like, you can click in. Oh, I also forgot. If we go back to our original mesh here, we still have those. So if we delete that, and then if we just Dynamesh, it'll close the holes for us. If a close holes operation doesn't do symmetrical, so just make sure you do a quick mirror and weld. And then we got that Dynamesh concept thing under here. So now we can go, okay, this thing is separate. Let's go ahead and spread this out. And you know what? We'll have these kind of facing backwards. So I'm going to go grab the H-polish brush, and we'll just kind of force those back a little bit. And this is something interesting we can do with this chin here. We can put in, I don't know, something cool that'll go down to his neck. You can kind of plug in some tubes or something in here. And I'm also going to go to the side here. This seems like it needs to come out a little bit more, so I'm going to mask it. And I'm just going to move this out. And we can actually just rotate that too. Or you can just use a big ol', big ol' move brush. All right, get rid of that little face there. If we do decide we want to dig that out, maybe we can kind of dig this in. We can pop some cylinders in there.
Is the job market for character artists getting more competitive?
I can't remember a time when it wasn't competitive. I think, what was a statistic way back in the day? It was like there's more NFL players in the world than there are character artists. Which, I mean, I worked on DC Universe Online. MMO, 10,000 character pieces, you know. It was an MMO, and it was, you know, we had characters on it, so you can already tell that's going to be a lot of assets, right? That whole team was like 4.5 character artists. at its peak. We had a character lead, and we had good tools, which helped a lot. But realistically, like when you look at a team breakdown size, it's like 100 environment artists and 10 character artists, and that's for a big character team. Um, as far as I've seen, maybe that's not true anymore. But it seems like character art is pretty rare. Like if that's why I tell people, if you want to get your foot in the door, like you can make characters all you want. I had characters in my portfolio and I got hired as an environment artist. So usually, generally speaking, if you can make character art and props, they can go, well, you can probably make environment props, right? Sometimes the opposite isn't true, but sandbox stuff like character characters, vehicles, weapons is usually what I'm kind of drawn to. Um, but yeah, I mean, character art and character positions, I think they've always been pretty competitive, just because the numbers aren't really there, you know.
Do you prefer organic or geometric sculpting?
Um, Depends on what I'm in the mood for, honestly. I like making weapons a lot. Um, I don't know. That's kind of a weird one. So like I do like making weapons, but I'm not a huge fan of just like, okay, find an M4, M203 and just recreate it meticulously. That is tedious as hell to me. I'm not that kind of weapon guy. I like concepting weapons and I do like making them plausible and stuff. But let's try this here. Another thing you can try doing with this kind of stuff is just going and grabbing insert mesh brushes. I don't really have that great of a library. I don't really do. I keep saying I don't do this that often, and now all of a sudden I'm doing it a lot. So now I need to start building up a library of just like cool stuff I can kind of pull from and mash in there. So I'm not stuck kind of just thinking like, well, and this is really just shape exploration. Like going through here and just kind of looking. But I can go back to my concept mesh here. And we can go, okay. Um, let's start fleshing out how we want the rest of this thing to go. So I'm going to go into my clay buildup. I'm going to switch this from a square to a circle. And we can kind of start doing maybe some neck pipes. We've kind of flirted with the idea of just a mask or just a felt mask to kind of pull over. Maybe we'll do that. I don't know. But let's see. So if this attaches back here, he needs some protection back here as well. Let's go ahead and see if there's we can kind of do protective helmet, and he's also going to need some communications gear. So if I start doing communications, when we start getting into pouches and stuff, obviously he'll have like M4 pouches and hand grenade pouches, and maybe some frag grenades or flashbangs, leg holsters, knee pads, that kind of thing. But also like radios and stuff we can get into. Let's go ahead and say this is strapped on here. And let's say this goes back here. And let's also say he's going to need, let's say he has just a big head communications thing on. And let's just try. Another thing I want to kind of play with is something with his body. My first reaction is always like, well, what if he's missing an arm? And it's like, well, I just did that. So I'm thinking what I'm gonna do is maybe along his back put in some cybernetic hook-ins, like that's like integrated into his rib cage, because his rib cage is not that flexible. You flex in your lumbar and you flex in your neck, but your rib cage is pretty static. So I think I can do some interesting stuff back there. Maybe we'll see. Let's see. It's ZBrush and Substance. Those are usually the fastest for me. I use ZBrush. I mean, I use a lot of things. ZBrush, Marvelous Designer, Maya, Fusion 360. It's been a little bit since I've gotten in there. What else do I use? And I try to just stay current. Like I'll use something for a long time and then I'll just forget it. I've forgotten more programs than I think I know at this point. But my crutch is always ZBrush, and Substance is really fast for me, like Painter. Substance Designer, I started out with Substance Designer. If you watch my GDC 2015 presentation on YouTube, that was way back in the day when Substance Designer was new and Substance Painter didn't even exist, and we used that for our pipeline. So that's kind of where I started with the whole Substance thing, and it's just really flexible, and speed is always the thing here. So if I want to like iterate on this thing, and we'll definitely do that too. Once I get this guy to a certain point, what we're going to do is we'll do a quick Substance pass where we just throw him into Substance. Maybe he's not done, but we'll have some material IDs on him, and we'll just throw him into Substance and do some quick materials and texturing and like scar him up and all that good stuff. Another thing that I do, why isn't this turning on? Come on. Thank you. Is yeah, so we'll just do a quick like decimate in UV, and then we'll throw it into Painter, and we'll just do some stuff. And the good news is it's actually not even that destructive. It's not like, well, you got to throw that work away. If you set it up right, you can actually just keep re-importing into the same Substance Painter file, and it'll just re-project and reapply as long as you don't change your material IDs. All of that detail back to your sculpt. So that's cool. And I did do some military sculpting. It was for a female way back in the day. If you go to my YouTube channel, somewhere on there, under like the concept sculpting playlists, I go through and I sculpt some female military and sci-fi stuff. And the good thing about getting your concept first before getting too far is like if I had broken that face off and started like retopologizing this thing and making it nice and creasing and stuff, then when I went to go put on the headgear, I'd be like, oh man, like, that thing needs to be moved. So now I can go, you know what, not a big deal. I can just take this thing, push it forward, get it out of the way. We'll put some padding in there. What else am I missing here? Put a little check mark here. Yeah, so okay, this thing here can kind of be, let's say that's like a Rhino mount for his night vision. So we can kind of start thinking about, okay, so if we have a big support structure here, it's tied into the helmet here, we can go ahead and inflate. This can kind of be built into the helmet maybe, or it can be sitting on top of the helmet and maybe bolted in. So we can go, you know what, let's go ahead and bolt it in. We'll put in some big old bolts here, and that'll be a flat piece. And then if you want to, and that can actually be bolted in. I was doing this in class yesterday. It's really no different. The only weird thing that happens is it's a little bit difficult to maneuver in and around interior spaces in ZBrush. It's not really set up for that. But if I want to set up just like a big warehouse with tons of stuff inside of it, I just treat it like I'm doing prop modeling. And then I just make it piece by piece. And then it's really, when it comes to environment art like that, it's just a lot of duplication and subtool organization. We can probably do some of that stuff on my channel. I'm not saying I'm the best at it, but we can certainly walk through it and make some cool stuff. And there's also a lot of tricks like nano mesh is a good one for environment art for that type of thing. So you can just like set up a plane and then duplicate like girders and that kind of thing. So yeah, we can just put a little mountain here. And that can be night vision. What does night vision look like? Let's see if I got any better night vision than this up. And also straps. So it looks like this thing right through here. So normally you have a 4-point strap, so you have a little nape guard back here, and then that'll connect to your chin strap. He doesn't really have a chin to speak of, but we can certainly make sure this thing. And that's another important thing too. You don't want to get into, and I won't name names here, but where your everything is just like a magnet, where it's like, well, how does this work? I don't know. It just kind of floats there. It's magic. It's tactical magic. Ideally, there's some semblance of maybe not realism, but certainly like feasibility in your designs, so that if this thing plugs into here, there's something, and if you need a cable or a comm speaker to come through here, and you can talk, or a wire that drapes down and it plugs in somewhere, that kind of thing. You don't have to go overboard and make everything rotate. Pick and choose your battles and your times, but also try not to have just stuff floating around. Of course, I say that and I do that, but be better than me. And maybe you can have some. Now, these don't necessarily have to be like spotlights. They can be like little infrared lights here. We can maybe put some lights right up in here. And now this is actually very, very flush to his head, so I might be biting myself in the butt right now, but we'll see. So we can go ahead and pop these in here. Those can be stereo infrared. Now, I'm doing everything symmetrically to save time, but a lot of times what you'll see is a lot of asymmetrical stuff on night vision and stuff like this, where it won't be like perfectly symmetrical like that. Yeah, we can get into this environment stuff. The only reason is I'm not well versed in it. I work with really great environment artists. So when I do environment art, it tends to be like, let's make a cliff, but let's make a cliff that has a skull face on it, because that's interesting, because making cliffs sucks because it's just a cliff and who cares, right? But that's a skill to have for sure. And I'm not saying if you make beautiful cliffs that you're not marketable. You're more marketable than I am. But as far as me personally, I don't want to sculpt rocks. I don't want to sculpt cliffs. If I'm going to sculpt a cliff, you better believe there's going to be a King Kong skull face on it, right? It'll still be rocks, but it'll be something that I want to look at. But yeah, we can definitely do some of that. Or like warehouses and stuff are fun. I haven't done them in a while, but we can do like a big mech sitting in a warehouse, or a room full of mechs sitting in a warehouse. And we can kind of see if we can get that lit interior lighting with key shots really fun. So we can try some of that maybe. Did I? Let me see. And he's still in there. I still have that concept sculpt underneath here, so I'm just kind of seeing where I want the damn stuff to go. And really, like, does he really need a sternomastoid tube? Maybe not. Maybe that's kind of dumb, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. I did make a palm tree. I don't remember what it showed up as, or if they even used it, but I made a palm tree. And it was actually pretty difficult. I could probably make a better one now, but back then it was certainly trying my patience making a palm tree. I remember that. Now, I mean, if the producers confirmed it, okay, I believe you. I don't necessarily want to take credit for it, but yeah, I did make a palm tree. I don't know that they used it, but somebody did somewhere.
You should put that palm tree in your portfolio.
Yeah, when I finished working on, there's a lot of stuff I should put in my portfolio, but usually it's such a hassle going through legal that it's like, you know what? I'll just make something else and put that in my portfolio. Yeah, it's part of that co-development kind of stuff where it's like, well, technically, I mean, you can show it, but don't talk about it, and you can talk about it, but don't show it. And if you show it, you gotta jump through these rings of fire. And at the end of the day, I just end up being like, you know what? I don't need to show it that bad. Let's put some. You know what? I guess that'll work. Okay, I'm just gonna keep building this up here. And if you want to, grab your inflate brush and you can just kind of go in there. Because I think I did some janky stuff to his neck here. So I'm just going to go through here and just, you can also turn on transparency. Just kind of pull this stuff out here. So he's got kind of a helmet going on here. Now in some military helmets I've seen, they've been flight helmets. They have those little knobs on the back. We can try maybe putting some of those in. I need to actually pull up some reference of some military helmets so I can make some educated decisions here. You can also put attachments on the helmet so we can kind of build this up maybe. And depending on what I'm making too, sometimes I'll start out with like, I'm going to make this military helmet and then I'm going to modify it. And then sometimes I'm like, you know what, I just want to get shapes going. And then I'll go look at reference and be like, can I either modify my helmet to match the reference, or do I modify the reference to match my shapes? And just kind of that kind of brings in a little bit of more of that feasibility.
Can you post your cyber demon?
My fan art is up on, it's on Sketchfab. So if you go to Pavlovich Sketchfab, you can look at the Cyber Demon cyber fan art.
I already spilled your secrets online.
Yeah, that was, God, that guy is so old. I did him forever ago. He was fun. He was definitely he's kind of more of a throwback cyber demon. He's got his mechanical big gun and his mechanical rocket arm and leg. Little Bane mask. Maybe I should look at some Bane reference. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't want it to look like Bane. Let's put in a little sphere here. Let's try clipping too.
Retooling his helmet will be a nightmare, right?
Nah, it'll be fun. I mean, depending on how hardcore you want to get it, and then like really retopologizing is the stuff I hate retopologizing the most is things like wrinkles in pants. That is not fun for me. Retopologizing this kind of stuff because it's hard surface isn't that big a deal, and we'll do it. Like if we're gonna take this guy to completion, which I'm not saying we are, but if anybody has an interest in that, we can take him all the way through the process and get him in and get him in Unreal and maybe even rig him and have him running around. That might be fun. All right, let's see. So this is all kind of interconnected in here. I want to put some sort of strap along the back here. So I'm going to dig this out here. And then I'm going to put something here. Should just be Pavlovich Sketchfab. Should show up. I do. I don't make a lot of them, but that is a lot of hard surface stuff, which is fun. And really, to me, they're not much different than an environment prop, really. It's just, you know, okay, you have wheels and you have axles, but other than that, it's just a bunch of hard surface modeling. All right, let's see.
How many hours do you take to create a full character, assuming the design's already set in stone?
Depends on the project. Usually have a week. On DC Universe Online, we got it down to about. I mean, again, it also depends. Like, I think the Halo armor took me a couple weeks per set. DC Universe Online, depending on the character, we got that down to about a 1 week process. The one-arm commander dude took about 35 hours, but I was using a bunch of insert meshes for his hard edge stuff, and you know, and that was just kind of flying by the seat of my pants, just going like, because I had to get that done for Substance Days, and I was doing along with my CG Master Academy students. So that was kind of just by its very nature. You know what? Let's just do one side. I use. They invited me to the ZBrush Sculpt Off, and I was in Germany. So I said thanks, but no thanks. Maybe next year. But then again, it's also like, ugh, yeah, I want to go there and I want to work. I'm already stressed enough when I travel. I don't want to travel and have to sit there and work all day too. But it's never that bad. I mean, I did that for Substance Days and I had a blast. So, okay, so let's go ahead and do a strap here. That's a BT apology brush. Let's go ramp, ramp, beep, boop, bop, beep. Wow. Yeah, let's get rid of that. That's good enough. I'll shove that right up in there. Good enough for now. And then this would have to connect down here. You know, we can probably just maybe pull a strap down here, or maybe up one, or maybe we pull it down this way and then go up one. Let's do that. Instead, let's flip this vertically. We're going to mirror this in the Y. Hit F to frame, and we'll rotate this around. And then this can go right up into here. And really, when it comes to just like making a character, I will spend 90% of my time, well, a good chunk of my time, let's say 70% of my time doing this, just kind of exploring like, I don't know, what's cool. And then when it comes down to like, okay, now make this cool or like make it final, that's actually the easy part. That's just technique. Um, the exploration takes forever. And if I'm really not feeling it, which I'm kind of not tonight, it takes even longer. Some nights I'll come in here and I'll be like, bada bing, bada boom, we're good to go. And then other nights I'll be like, that looks like a duck beak. Womp, womp, womp. I'm retarded. So, I don't know. So I'm not really firing on all cylinders every day for sure. And it's kind of just a zone thing too, where sometimes it'll take me a couple hours to kind of just start going, okay, things are starting to fall into place. I've looked at enough stuff. I've gotten enough um, sculpting in, and things just kind of fall into place here. I need to practice a little bit more in my ideation, just in ZBrush, so I can just and that's part of what building up that library of assets is just building up a bunch of shapes you can pull in. Let me see what I have. Let me see if I got anything in worthwhile brushes. It's been a while since I've dug through here. Military commander stuff. Let's see what I got in this brush. Yeah, these are kind of cool. Let's see. Take this piece here. And unfortunately, a lot of this is hard edge stuff. So if I start doing this type of thing, might look a little bit out of place. The what? Did you ever find the Sketchfab? Get out of here. I'm gonna find it real quick. So now the Cyber Demon is pretty light. Show chat. Yep. The Cyber Demon's pretty light. The Commander's really heavy. So, did that go out? Sketchfab. And you know what? Yeah, before I get going on this vest, let's pop off this back piece here. And let's.
Photo reference in a more personal way. Where do you draw the most artistic inspiration?
For creature stuff, and I've said this before in other threads, it's like Jordy Shell and Simon Lee and Andy Bergholtz and Adam Bean and Tony Cipriano, all the traditional sculptors. I love looking at their stuff. Jordy Shell especially, I just have his stuff up, just even if it has nothing to do with what I'm working on. For hard edge and for like just kind of general military stuff, I'll get back to you on that. I need to go back through my reference libraries and just start pulling. I'll go back through like ArtStation's a great one. I'll go through and kind of dig through there quite a bit and just kind of take a look. Okay, I guess I still have that. Okay. But yeah, if you guys have inspiration, let me know, and I will go. Holler out your inspiration if you like to go different places. My stuff is usually just ArtStation. I'll go on there every once in a while. I'm kind of bad about it, but let's see. So now on this thing, I'm going to go here a little bit. Let's try. I'm going to drag back my undo history. So let's do a little digging inside his anatomy here. So if he has a spine in there, let's say somebody had to go out and dig in quite a bit of his spine here. Smooth stronger, 100%. And they wanted to implant some like rings or something so he could be hooked up to something or strung up somewhere. So now the base of the neck there, I think your C7 is where your head's going to turn, so I'm going to kind of leave that alone. So we'll go ahead and we'll just kind of mark that off here, kind of protect that. And maybe that can turn into like a something. And then in here, we'll kind of dig in and around. And this also stays pretty stagnant. So you do a lot of your bending in this area, so I'm going to leave that alone as well. If we do end up putting something in there, I want to make sure it's segmented. So it's like, something like that. But in here, let's do something weird. So we can kind of dig this out here. So in lieu of another gun arm, let's kind of dig through here and say, so he's got his vertebrae in here and he's got his rib cage through this way. The ribs will be kind of doing that. So if we put on rings here and they're kind of fused to his rib cage, let me go ahead and chop this back just a little bit more. There we go. Let's dig in. Go to Damien Standard. All right, so let me go into this brush here. I'll grab my poly rings, drag one of those out, and we'll split that off. I'm doing a lot of splitting, so I'm going to do a quick save. Load that back up. Now these particular poly rings, I don't need an entire poly ring, so I'm going to have to grab here, and we'll do delete hidden, close holes, and I can isolate these and just Control Shift. Let's go ahead and snap to that surface normal here. And we'll also inflate these up here, so we'll go into inflate. We'll make it a little bit more substantial and we'll rotate them around. So let's say on every 2 ribs, he has something like this. And so you need to be able to move your clavicles back, so those are going to have to go back quite a bit. So let's go ahead and mask, invert. And I should have closed those holes a little bit nicer. Wait a minute, let's just move these in a little cleaner. Okay, so we can move his clavicles back, and we'll rotate these in, and we'll also start duplicating them down. And you know what, let's make them also a little bit smaller. And we'll turn on LSIM so they stay somewhat local. And we'll just rotate these in. All right. I need to go to the other side. What did you say? Oh. Honestly, I kind of avoid ArtStation because I feel like the worst artists in the world have to go on there. I'm just like, oh my god, what am I doing with my life? Everybody is way better than I am by a long shot. But it's still good to go on there, and there's a lot of really great stuff. So ZBrush Central is another good one. I need to go on there more often. Split mouse points. Oh yeah, definitely. Planet Earth and National Geographic, and that's a good point. I should probably be looking at pulling inspiration from different things. What? Pepper. Yeah, Erin is constantly on me. She wants me to make our fluffy dog in 3D, and I'm like, that is going to be such a trial of hair and fur creation, and I probably couldn't pull it off. Oh, she would be something else. Man, I mangled the hell out of that thing. Let's try that again. So I'm going to Alt-E, go grab this one, and if I drag it right down the middle, it should be fine. Now, it's already symmetrical, so I should be able to just grab it. I don't have symmetry turned on, and just scale it out. And then I can either do, I don't have size on here. I need to match my work custom menu with my home custom menu. So I'm going to drop this in here. And I'm also, okay, so that's what's doing it. I'm going to go ahead and turn off symmetry temporarily. We'll do an insert, single edge loop, hold down Alt, and then we'll do a quick mirror and weld. And really, I shouldn't even care about that. Just Dynamesh it and just go in there and start moving around. I hate when I get caught up in like, oh, what if? It's like, you know what? I don't even know what I want in here yet, so I'm going to play it safe. So we'll go through here and we'll clip this out. And we'll inflate. And we can also Dynamesh these things. And now let's Dynamesh them at a little higher resolution here. And now I can go in here and we can make these a little bit more substantial. Again, it doesn't have to be pretty. I'm just trying to get a feel for like how this stuff's going to go in and work. And then this thing can be masked and translated up. Rotate this forward here. Nope. Deleted. Let me see. Let's try cylinders. If it's on a spine, you can kind of rotate with them. That might be kind of cool. And that can kind of be an interesting silhouette. So we'll go here, and then we'll duplicate this down, and we'll rotate it down. And we'll also try on my channel just doing some concept sketches in Photoshop using some just brushes and see how that works out. We're definitely going to do that when I get to robots and weapons because that's fun and easy. And you can always take the stuff as is and just do a screenshot and just go paint over it in Photoshop for sure. Nothing wrong with that. Let's go back to our square alpha. We'll play around with that idea. Oh yeah, I use animation when I'm doing spotlight to kind of move stuff around and match reference, and I'll definitely be doing some of that. There's blend shape stuff that we might get into. It's been a long time since I've had to do any of that. But yeah, maybe some blend shape stuff. I don't know if I'll get into like hardcore animation. I usually just animate the camera for my needs. But blend shape stuff, maybe I need to brush back up on that kind of stuff. You can do some really cool blend shapes. And you can also just do it with layers too. But like I said, I need to brush back up. And he's looking kind of sci-fi-y, which I guess is okay. And let's put, I feel like he needs, well, yeah, okay. So I'm going to take this and let's just do a sphere. And kind of start layering this stuff over. Now, this is turning out, you know, super organic. If you want to kind of stay away from that, you can go in here and like clip curve and kind of force yourself into a little bit more of a hard edge stuff. Another good one is if you go into, well, it's not a good one, but you can try it, is trim, elemental PQRS trim. Nope, not trails. Come on. There it is. Trim, smooth borders a good one. If you load up like a circle or a square alpha, you can do some really neat kind of, that's a good one for rocks, but you can also just kind of go through and just make some really quick hard edge shapes like so. And then using move with AccuCurve turned on, so that's underneath your curve brush. I have a specific thing set up for that. So if you do want to pull these things out to like squares, you can do that. And if it is techie stuff, you know, you don't necessarily have to be able to see through. I mean, you can give them a pair of goggles and stuff, but you can also obviously, you know, just cover his whole head with sheet metal and then say, oh, you know what? He has cameras in his eyeballs. And that gets hooked up to external whatever. So we can start layering up his helmet a little bit here. Let's do another H polish. Kind of starting to get a Star-Lord Transformers-esque look here. Let's do a mirror in the eyes are getting old. There we go. Now he's got a Birdman thing going on. Clip that back. Say something? You can talk all the way. Why not? I can't hear you. I got a headphone on one side. I guess I don't need it, but that's where my microphone is. But actually, speaking of shits and giggles, I should probably do some fan art. Like, it's a little bit easier to go with, like, oh, make this character. And it's like, but you can kind of riff off that character a little bit and do your own thing. But at least you have a starting point, and it's not just like all over the place. Let's give that a rest, and we'll start doing like beefing up his body a little bit here. So let's give a shot. Is this the one I want? No, this is the one I want. So let's go in here and let's say, you know what? Okay, so he'll have maybe some shoulder pads. They can go along here. I don't want them to look like football shoulder pads necessarily, but we'll give it a shot and see how that holds up. We can also, let's do Alt-E-M. Let's give him a neck protector. Here. And again, I could go in there and model a really nice neck protector and spend a little bit more time, but since I'm not sure I want it, then maybe it's not a good use of my time. So I'm going to do this first and kind of play around with it a little bit. We can try, let's duplicate that off and we'll flip it. Mirror in the Z. Come on. Do a trim instead. So trim is going to slice it and then fill that hole so I don't have to deal with that clip curve stuff. Of course, I still have a very thin mesh here. I can just really quickly go in here and inflate. Clean that up. And on top of this vest, let's say I'm going to have some straps coming down this way. And those can kind of hook in here. And on the back. All this back stuff looks really boring. Usually it's just molly and pouches and stuff like that. So let's try. Let's go ahead and smooth this down. these, and they're all kind of the same. Okay, so
How do you retopologize your Fusion 360 design to be integrated into your character model?
Fusion 360 has kind of a game res thing you can do. It's let me see if I have my notes on that. Oh, actually, that reminds me. So somebody at work just did that. Laura went through and sent that out. So basically, well, I mean, one thing you can do, you just bring it in and then you can group by a normal angle and you can use ZRemesher to do a lot of the retopologizing or just hand retopologize it, which is probably what I do. If we do... Let me see. There we go. Basically, you enable the mesh workspace in your preferences preview, check on mesh workspace, save out a new version of your file and delete your history, delete any bodies, extra bevels, extra fillets that you don't want in your low poly. In the mesh workspace tab, convert all of your BP reps to meshes, run a reduce command. Actually, there's a YouTube video. Let me send this. Guess I can load up Twitch on here. So this is one option for Fusion 360. That one. Oh, come on. Oh, God. So I'm logged into Twitch on my profile, not my work one. Sorry about that. Another second. There it is. There you go. Give that a look. That's one way, and then it's just a little bit of cleanup. When you're doing hard edge stuff, sometimes even decimating will get you a healthy way there, and then you just go through and delete some edges and rearrange some of the topology. What? Really? Oh, God, of course. I went to YouTube. Man. I will did this. Let's see. YouTube. That one. But a lot of times, if it's a complex thing and it's just sometimes all the little tricks in the world won't save you from having to go in there and plot points one by one by one, one at a time. And if you get into a rhythm, like I said before earlier, honestly, I don't even mind retopologizing that much. The thing I hate doing most is wrinkles and organic shapes, like wrinkles in pants. That's probably my least favorite thing to do. Everything else is just kind of is what it is. If there's a fast, speedy way to go around it, I would love for like ZBrush or Houdini to come up with the be all end all for like, hey, you never have to do game reses again. I'm still waiting for that solution. But in the meantime, topology is topology. Let's go ahead and start filling this guy up with the packs too. And these are just going to be super rudimentary packs, obviously. So cube here. Just to kind of get a feel for what's going to be showing up or not. So we'll dynamesh these. Push those into place. And let's say we're going to do like a mag pouch. So basically, you're going to have a little flap here. That's going to go over. And then inside here, you're going to have your magazine. Super hi-fi, I know. And then sometimes around the go ahead and just trim dynamic this down. And then around, actually this might be a little bit lower, but you have a little tab here, and you maybe have a little button here. And sometimes you'll have a little wrap around here, a little elastic wrap. And then these are usually, let's do mask lasso here. We'll spread this out. And these aren't terribly difficult to model when we get to the final. We can definitely go through a lot of that. But just for kind of an indication of like, hey, we need a quick pouch. What's it going to look like with M4 mag pouch on? There you go. Looks like a little pack of cigarettes. Let's kind of squish that down a little bit. Now it's just off the top of my head, so I would usually have reference up too. I think that strap's a little bit thin if I had to guess, but something like this, and then probably a lot bigger than that actually. Maybe that maybe. And then you'll have probably more than one of these things, so let's go ahead and push these to the center here. And with a full helmet, he comes across as very, looks like Air Force, you know, which I'm not against, but also kind of not what I was going for, so I might rethink all that stuff. We'll see. And then we can just drag off here. Now, if you want to do like a pistol mag pouch, these look a little bit thick. Let's do it this way here. Maybe they're a little pistol mag pouch. We can just do, let's do an auto groups, mirror and weld, and then we can pop one of these off. Actually, we'll duplicate that, pop one of these off, delete hidden. And if he's got pistol ammo, it'll probably be more like that. See how easy that was? Done. And then that would be his handgun thing, which, you know, probably might be on a drop leg mount here. So we'll just put this down here. Speaking of drop leg mounts, let's give him some pants. Not that there might be a tactical advantage to going into battle with no pants on. What do I know? But let's take a quick look at him. And we did this on an earlier one, but let's go here, here, and we will duplicate this guy off. Let's drop down some subdivision levels, delete higher, delete lower, control W, isolate, delete hidden. I'm just going to run my macro for polishing the polygroup border. We talked about how to do that manually. And then we'll just do a quick Z-remesh. 0. Target polygon count's fine. We're in X symmetry. And then we'll just keep hitting half. There we go. One too far. All right, now we can inflate this. And we kind of have some rudimentary pants going. Now in this case, you can just close holes. If you want to close a fancy hole, just hover over this and do close convex hole. And then you can, do that. The reason I'm not going to give this guy skin thickness is because I'm never going to really see into his pants anytime. So it's easier for me just to close holes and then Dynamesh this guy. There we go. And we're off to the races. So now, depending on the kind of pants you want them to have, these are going to be like skin tight pants, and you can do like the wrinkles here and build this stuff up, but well, give them a cod piece if you want to. Sometimes I see that and I've seen it done well. I think I'm going to stick to more traditional kind of military pants. I'm going to pull these crotch way down. I'm going to flatten this out. And when we go into Marvelous Designer, I'll show you. I mean, when we did the tank top, you saw how easy it was just to kind of make a pattern and apply it and then get it to wrap and then kind of fit it. You can do the same thing for all sorts of shirts and pants, but there's also, if I was doing a pair of flight gloves that were a pain in the butt to get all the seams right. So what I ended up doing is making it, just kind of sculpting it out really quick, Z-remeshing, cutting my seams, UVing it, and taking that in as a pattern, and that gave me a much more, much nicer start to my thing. Let me open up some. No. Yeah, I guess I can just look. Maybe I have some pants reference, or I. Yeah, and we'll do knee pads too, because they usually wear some knee pads. But anyway, so with the crotch lower like this, it's basically going to be, you're going to have the centerpiece here. Let's go ahead and lazy radius this up. And let's go ahead and turn off his vest for now. We'll tuck his shirt in. Although probably he won't have his shirt tucked in, but we'll just pull his pants out here. These are very high-waisted pants. I'm going to drop those down. So really our dividing line will probably be closer to here. And we can also put in like a sub belt if we want to really gear them out, and that can be like that can be another layer where you do a sub belt here that goes in those kind of like suspenders underneath if you want to. That can be a cool look. And we'll go through here and kind of get some pockets in there. And let's go ahead, and I'm going to drop the resolution of that quite a bit. Honestly, I don't even know why I Dynamesh. Usually when I'm doing cloth, I'll keep it subdivided nicely, just so I can kind of work my way up through the subdivision levels. Looks like he's got a saggy diaper. Turn off lazy radius here. I'm going to shoot this to the top, and I'm going to shoot this to the top. Flake brush. There we go. And yeah, honestly, obviously I would use Marvelous Designer to do the heavy lifting, but while we're in here, we can kind of start indicating maybe some pleats, where we want the cuts to go. If we do want knee pads, if we don't want knee pads, we can start indicating those a little bit. Like I said, it's a little high. Let's go ahead and trim that off there. And the reason I have his pants kind of high is because he's going to be wearing some boots. So we'll go ahead and like crunch these things up. These will be some big compression folds in here because they're going to be cinched into a boot. And probably have like boot bands or just little bands you kind of roll up underneath. And then speaking of boots, we can go ahead and block in a boot. I guess I'm always trying to think of the easiest way to start a boot. Sometimes I'll use just do like the same thing I did for my pants. Sometimes I'll do shadow box. Sometimes I'll just build it out with ZModeler real quick. And actually, one of the weird things, I actually like making boots. It's kind of relaxing. if we want to put some pockets on here, we can do, yeah, pleated pockets. We can do in Marvelous Designer as well. I can walk you through that process. We can go ahead and kind of indicate if we want some pockets on the side here. And if we do want knee pads, I guess we can go ahead and start indicating some of those. Split mass points. And let's go ahead and let's chop off the back of these real quick. And maybe let's go grab clip circle. And they can also have a lot of big cloth underside to these things. They're not just necessarily put on there with straps, so it would be something like, it's the easiest way to, you know what, I'm going to duplicate this off. And we will steal this section here, delete hidden, close holes, and we will inflate that. All right, so something like build this back up here. So now these things will hook in to these things here. And then let me go ahead and H polish these down. And the reason I'm doing 5-second knee straps is to make sure that I want knee straps. So just kind of putting it in there real quick, and then it's easy enough to go back through and make the final knee straps once we have everything in place. So now with those knee straps in place, the wrinkles themselves will be kind of like so. Bagging up. And boots we were talking about. You know what? Let's try something new. I'm going to start at the bottom of his feet. Let's do append a plane. And we will rotate this plane down. Let's go ahead and rotate. Nope. Nope. What was the last one? There we go. Rotate it 90 degrees. And then we will flip this. And I will subdivide this a couple times. There we go. Oops. All right, so the boot is gonna go around here. Let's get that boot shape going. And Control W, isolate that, delete hidden, delete lower, delete hidden. Run my macro. And now we can do a quick Z remesher. Q mesh polygroup all. Flip. And we kind of got a soul going. Do a quick mirror, mirror and weld. Oops, with local sim turned off. X. And I need boot reference. Let me see if I can find some of that. Military equipment. Another thing we can do, we can pull some of this in. So if we do, let's do a little bit of spotlight here. Jeez. Okay. So let's go ahead and do texture import. I'll grab this thing here, texture, boom, bomb. So let's say we can start here. Now we don't have to make this boot obviously, but we can just start with a boot shape here. So, and I'm just using spotlight here. So we got our soul here, and let me just close all this stuff down. 1, 2, 3, good enough. So I'm gonna, you know what? I can keep this separate maybe. I don't know. Or you can just dynamesh it, and we can just go. Let's move this straight up. That'll give us the bottom of the feet here. And where's the boot front? Too many images. All right, let's just dynamesh this. And honestly, once you sculpt one boot, keep that thing around. I actually do have a boot sculpted on the commander, but it's kind of a wonky boot. So I'll go ahead and just here, and then on the inside, it kind of swoops in a little bit. And then from this side here, and trim dynamic. Mask. Let's bring his body back here. all I really need is a front view, and I don't have a front view of this damn thing. It's close enough. Let me see. Front view, please. Just one front view is all I need. There we go. All right. Here. All right. Let's bring our reference back here. And let's just do one. And if you want to, you can save this view. You can actually load up a bunch of views. I'm probably not going to, but you can go over here. You can use the movie thing, or if you're in a pinch, just zap link will be fine. You can RGB paint this right on there. That's half your boot. And then turn that off real quick, and we'll just kind of even this out so the toe kind of goes up and then back down. And then for the other side, find an interior side of it. I think this one maybe. Here's a bunch of different views. Let's grab that one. That'll work. So we've already got this shape. And let's see, go here. I can also bring in a bottom of the sole picture, which will help us get that bottom sole evened out. Come on. Jesus. And you can always do a flip horizontal. And his feet kind of rotate in quite a bit. And he has some monster legs too. Need some huge boots. Anyway, I could paint that detail on and then just start breaking down the different areas and stuff, we can go ahead and start sculpting this in a little bit. Get a little bit tighter. Looks like I lost pressure sensitivity. There we go. Sometimes when you Alt-Tab out, if you lose pressure sensitivity, it'll get it back. It goes up here, up and around. And again, I'm just indicating where these things go for landmarks, so when I bring in the reference images and stuff, we can kind of match out where these lines are. If I decide to make these boots, which, I don't know, maybe not. We can also do another good boot thing is like motorcycle boots can be pretty cool looking. I think on the Commander I ended up using, that was a mix of motorcycle boot and like a fashion designer boot, honestly. I think I had some, I think it might have even been girls' boots. Yeah. For what it's worth. Some cool girls' boots I saw. The little flap over the front, and then I just kind of integrated some motorcycleness to it. Yeah, UVing isn't fun. I use Hedis for UVing a lot. It's not fun, but kind of takes the edge off a little bit. Actually, the photo spotlight doesn't fit the character size-wise. That would just be a matter of just mushing it around. That's kind of what I did. You know, I made the model first, and then I brought in Spotlight, and I just moved the model into place to kind of match spotlights. But I mean, even if you can just model this boot independently completely of the character and be just fine. I need an inside picture of the boot now. And then just kind of move it and scale it into place. These are hot weather safety toe boots. Go here and then here. And again, I don't necessarily think we'll be just using these boots straight up. I don't know, maybe we will. And then they'll have a little strap on the back here. Let's grab our clay buildup. How are we doing on time? Oh, I only got 5 minutes left. I still gotta eat dinner. Late night dinner. Anyway, hopefully it wasn't too boring. Really, the fun stuff for me kicks in when we start getting to technique stuff, and that's after I figure out what I'm making. The what I'm making part is fun, but not necessarily fun for you guys, you know what I mean? It's just basically me moving stuff around and inserting stuff until I see something that piques my interest and gives me an idea, and that's just ideation, and it's probably not the funnest thing in the world to watch. But once we get that going, man, just breaking the stuff down and like going to Polish Town is super fun and easy, and it's just technique stuff, so we can do that kind of thing all day. I just have to figure out what I want to make first. I don't want to prematurely start being like, well, let's force it. Let's just start rebuilding stuff, and then it's like, well, I've bitten myself before where I'll start rebuilding something, and then at the end of the day, it's like, well, I better stick with that because I put a lot of time into it, but it's not really that good, or not right for the character. And honestly, that's the hard part too, is I don't even know what's right for this character. And we also might just jump around a little bit. I'm thinking maybe next time we'll just do some weapon concepts or some robots concepts, and we'll just come into ZBrush and make some robots and some weapons maybe. Might be kind of fun. I don't want to turn this into like we're gonna make a character from start to finish and we're gonna work on that for 2 weeks. Doesn't have to be that way. There we go. Something like that. So he's got some semi-military boots. He's got some pouches going. We'll talk about radio equipment maybe sometime. How to integrate. This is more exciting to me, is integrating his back piece into his vest. Seems like it could be kind of fun. You could go a couple different ways. You could do it like the military implants all that, so all these guys get vests that are made for this, or he could be a little more piecemeal, and it's like, you know what, he's a one-off. He just got a vest, and then he just kind of put some straps and rope around it and kind of tied it onto himself because, you know, he's a unique individual. Not everybody has one of those things. So, I don't know. Could be kind of fun to kind of play around with that idea. And then really just gearing him out, putting some armor on him. Did I lose? Yeah, I did. There's the rest of him. Actually, has a very different feel. As soon as I put this on, yeah, that whole back piece kind of just looks like this looks a little more tactile, and that looks like a pilot or something. I might rethink that. Huh. Or maybe just trim it down or something, or we can pop these pieces off and just turn it into more headband and helmet shell, something like that. And then we'll figure out what we want to do for shoulder pads, or if he's wearing a t-shirt, or if he's just wearing his tank top here. Yeah, we'll figure it out. It'll be fun. And then we'll get these pants into Marvelous Designer once we get our drop leg holsters in there, which would be something like it would come down from the belt, and then that would actually be 2 more straps. So it'll be basically 2 more cinches. Of course, that's going to go over my pockets here. That's okay. We can just take those pockets out. You got drop legs. You don't need pockets, I suppose. And of course, if he's got that, he's going to need a belt, but that's going to be under all the stuff, so maybe we won't spend a whole lot of time on that. I don't know. It could be pretty cool. Anyway. All right. I think I answered most of the questions that I saw or that Aaron hollered out. But y'all have a good night, and this will be up on YouTube maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. I'll go ahead and save this off, and I will catch y'all on the flip side.